The sun was just breaking over Lake Serenity, Minnesota, filling the air with the sharp scent of pine needles and morning mist, when blue police lights started flashing across the weathered boards of my grandfather's old A-frame cabin. Gravel crunched under tires as two squad cars rolled up, and there she stood, Brenda Carmichael, on the deck of her massive $800,000 mansion across the water, wrapped in a bright pink bathrobe, pointing at me like I'd just robbed a bank. The cop stepped out, hand resting near his belt, and said something close to, "Sir, you're under arrest for trespassing on your own property." But the words died when I pulled out my deed and showed it to him. Brenda had been terrorizing the whole lake community for months, calling the police on anyone who dared to live without her approval. She'd threatened to sue me for $50,000, filed false reports, even tried bribing county officials to get me thrown off my land. What she never realized was that I owned the mansion she was renting. 3 years earlier, I'd come back from 20 years in military logistics, fresh off a divorce that felt like getting flattened by a tank driven by my ex-wife's lawyer, and inherited my grandfather's modest 1960s cabin on 2 acres of shoreline. Population around 3,200 in Cedar Falls. Back then, the biggest drama was Mrs. Henderson's cat stealing fish off docks. The place was simple: worn dock boards smooth from decades of Minnesota weather, loons calling across mirror-still water at dawn, air so clean it scrubbed 20 years of Army diesel out of my lungs. Cedar and pine mixed with that sweet metallic lake smell every morning. For 2 perfect years, it really was serenity. 47 properties dotted 8 miles of shoreline. Blue-collar locals and summer folks all following one unspoken rule: wave when you see each other, help when someone's in trouble, mind your own business otherwise. Then Brenda arrived in her overpowered pontoon boat, turning the biggest McMansion on the lake into her personal kingdom. It looked like someone dropped a suburban Dallas house into the Minnesota woods by mistake. Within a week, she'd introduced herself to half the lake wearing blinding white capris and cardigans bright enough to signal aircraft. Sweet on the surface, eyes cold as January ice. One calm morning, I was on my dock with coffee that tasted like liquid peace when her boat cut through the silence like a chainsaw. "Yoo-hoo! Hello there, neighbor," she called, docking with theatrical flair and producing a manila folder. She announced she was from the executive estate, unofficial Lake Serenity Homeowners Association business. The association had voted on new aesthetic standards, and my rustic setup, my old aluminum boat, grandfather's hand-carved rod holders, scattered tackle, didn't comply. "That boat has got to go," she said. And frankly, the fishing gear makes the whole area look like a bait shop exploded. I set my mug down hard enough to ring the rail. "What homeowners association?" Her smile cracked. "The one that protects our property values from declining influences." I told her the property had been in my family since before she was born, no covenants on my deed, no HOA authority. Her voice dropped to Arctic levels. "We'll see about that, won't we, soldier boy?" She gunned the engine, sending a wake that slammed my dock and spilled my coffee. Burning gas and expensive perfume lingered like a threat. 3 days later, an envelope was taped to my door like a parking ticket from hell. A violation notice on fancy letterhead demanding $500 for failure to maintain aesthetic standards, 30 days to comply, or face fines and liens. It looked official. Seals, case numbers, legal-sounding language. Most people would panic and pay. Too bad it was worthless. I headed to the Cedar Falls courthouse basement, smelling of old leather and broken dreams, and befriended Dolores, the longtime county clerk. She pulled my file and whispered that Brenda had been in 6 times that month asking about enforcement and liens. My deed was clear: no restrictions, no HOA power. But digging deeper, I found Carmichael Holdings LLC had quietly bought several lakefront properties. Online searches showed she was running an unlicensed vacation rental empire, turning quiet family cabins into party houses for Twin Cities tourists. The woman preaching community standards was destroying them. I posted on Facebook asking if anyone else had gotten violation notices. My phone exploded. 8 residents shared private horror stories. She'd threatened elderly widows over bird feeders, young families over mailbox colors. Janet, a retired librarian, had documented everything in a 3-ring binder. Tom from the marina had photos of bad checks and unpaid bills. Even 90-year-old Florence noted strange late-night activity at Brenda's rentals. We formed a private group chat, Lake Serenity Truth Squad. Brenda called me that evening, voice oozing like honey mixed with solvent. She warned me not to go down this road, claiming connections and threatening harassment charges. I stayed calm. Military instinct told me this was war, and I'd gathered intel first. Code Enforcement Officer Tom Hendricks showed up next, embarrassed, following up on Brenda's bogus dock and abandoned vehicle complaints. He measured twice, shook his head, admitted she'd filed 23 complaints in 6 months, and once tried slipping him $100 as a consulting fee. Bribery attempts were escalating. The Truth Squad attended her emergency HOA meeting as observers. Only 6 people came, mostly her rental managers. She had a PowerPoint on protecting investments, complete with pie charts and photos of non-compliant houses belonging to holdouts. Janet overheard Brenda on a phone call during a break, hissing about payments coming due and needing new strategies, legal pressure, code enforcement, whatever it took. Someone was squeezing her financially, and she was desperate. My grandfather's lawyer, Arthur Peton, 78, still sharp, revealed the bombshell. In 1987, my grandfather created the Northwoods Property Trust as a tax shelter. I held 60% controlling interest, including 4 lakefront properties, one being Brenda's mansion. She'd been paying rent to a management company that deposited into an account I never knew existed. The lease banned unlicensed businesses, required peaceful enjoyment of neighboring properties, and demanded community harmony. She'd violated at least 14 terms, plus 2 months behind on rent with late fees piling up. The irony was perfect. She'd harassed her own landlord while running an illegal operation and falling behind. Arthur advised documenting everything, offering mediation first, exhausting reasonable options before eviction. Courts like that. We built the case meticulously. Security cameras caught our handyman removing my boat's drain plug at 2:17 a.m. $2, 800 damage, felony territory. Deputy Rodriguez confirmed it crossed into criminal. Brenda's behavior grew erratic. Meltdowns at the grocery store, banning from the marina, demanding neighbors choose sides in her lake war. Florence told her exactly where to stick her loyalty demands. Then came bribery attempts, $5,000 cash, to a county commissioner to condemn my cabin as an environmental hazard, similar offers to zoning inspectors and deputies. One wore a wire. Recordings were crystal clear. The DA opened an investigation. Felony bribery charges loomed. At the Packtown Council meeting in the high school gymnasium, 300 residents, TV cameras rolling, I revealed the truth with projected deeds and timelines. The crowd gasped when the screen showed I was her landlord. Security footage of sabotage, audio of bribes, financial records of unpaid bills, and fraud played out. I held up the eviction notice. 30 days to vacate for multiple violations. The ovation lasted forever. Brenda screamed conspiracy, but her lawyer restrained her. She stormed out. She packed and left for Florida in 14 days, leaving property damage and a forwarding address that wouldn't last. She took a plea deal, probation, 200 hours community service. The HOA collapsed. From the Truth Squad, we formed a real advisory committee. Reasonable standards, no tyrants. We started a scholarship fund for kids pursuing environmental science, law, or public service, funded partly by 3 years of surprise rental income. Lake cleanups became statewide models. Janet and I started dating over shared love of documentation and toppling empires. I never planned to lead anything, but standing up for fishing rights turned me into an accidental organizer. The lake smells like pine and possibility again. If you've got your own HOA nightmare, share it. Knowledge, cameras, public records, and community beat bullies every time.